It's not what you make, it's what you keep. Welcome to day 77 of our Supersize Your Business Annual Challenge. Today we're talking about cash flow and that cash is indeed king, especially when we're growing and building and supersizing our businesses. Today I'm obviously not home. I'm traveling for the next week and a half or so, which is always fun, but also always challenging. And if we don't have cash flow, guess what? We can't travel. We can't do the things that we want to do. That is the reason we have our business, at least for the majority of us, in the first place. So let's talk about this today. This is our month of focusing on our finances, financial health and well-being in all areas and aspects of our business. And so we couldn't not talk about cash flow. I don't know about you, but throughout the years, I've learned how important and how true it is that cash is indeed king in our businesses. And we need to make sure that our cash is flowing. And that's a totally different thing than how much and how great our sales might be for our organization. I've worked for organizations that made $100 million, yet couldn't pay their vendors on time because they weren't timing when money came in and when money went out. They also, our customers were all very, very big corporations. And if you know anything about the inside of how businesses work, the bigger the corporation, there tends to be the slower they pay. So if you're in a business that depends on inventory, which I've been in several of those, that can be challenging from a cash flow standpoint. So how do you manage your cash flow? Are you paying attention to it? I'm sorry, but if you're in business and you're not paying attention to your numbers, you're not going to be in business very long. One of the main reasons businesses fail is because of cash flow challenges, not because they're not a good business idea. It's how they're being run and managed financially that determines whether they live or die in many instances. The COVID pandemic was an eye-opener for many of us and many of our businesses. Now, I'd been running businesses for 4 decades by the time the pandemic hit, but a lot of people I know and love and care about actually lost their businesses during this time period because they weren't set up, and none of us, let's be honest, I didn't have a pandemic contingency plan or pandemic built into our contingency plans. Do now, and I would imagine that you do as well. Have we talked about emergency plans and insurance? I think we have. So today, let's think about cash flow and talk about cash flow. There's several ways that we can make sure we have enough money and enough cash to pay the bills. I don't know about you, but have you ever had plenty of money in the bank, but because of the timing, you weren't able to take cash out? I experienced this the other day. I had put $40,000 in the bank and wanted to take some out, but I couldn't take any out because of cash flow challenges. And I had to wait for that check to actually clear, even though it was a certified check. I had to wait for it to clear through the bank's timing and rules. So we need to take into consideration all of the people we interact with, their timing and rules, because they're managing their own cash flow, right? Everybody has to take that into account. I remember when you put a check in the bank and you had to wait 2 weeks before you could spend it, which taught us as we were younger to really manage our cash flow, our money coming in and our money going out. If you are, I'm going to assume you're doing this or you wouldn't still be in business for any amount of time and you wouldn't be listening to me. But how are you doing it? What tips and tricks and strategies have you learned in terms of buffers and systems and reserves and timing in order to make sure that you do have the cash you need to do the things you want when you want to do them with your business? We've talked about several of these ways of doing it so far. We've talked about different budgeting strategies. We've talked about different ways of ensuring that, but this is more about the timing of things, which some of that's in your control, some of it's not. It's in your control to go ahead and set up a buffer for your business and a reserve so that you don't have to worry about at least the operating expenses in your organization. Things like that. See, I'm in the business center, so I have to have background noise, and that's just the way it is. So today, I challenge you to look at your timing, your cash flow, and determine if it is set up in a way that protects you and your organization or not. And if not, start building that today. Any questions, any help with this? All you have to do is reach out and ask. Let's have an awesome day, and I will, of course, be with you tomorrow. Bye.